Welcome to the Empowered Leader Podcast, where bold marginalized voices rise and get amplified, and the people who champion them step fully into their power. I'm Margaret Williams, your leadership coach and energy builder, here to fuel your growth with real talk, elevated strategies, and unapologetic empowerment. If you're ready to break limits, disrupt the norm, and lead with purpose that actually moves people, let's dive in.
We're ready to talk today about creativity is a method of healing. Okay? And people probably like, why she keep talking about healing? Healing is the key to learning and growth, experiential growth. Okay? So if we don't address the trauma, we're gonna remain small. We're gonna remain down here. We can't allow that. Okay? Because we are all empowered leaders. Okay? Regardless of your nationality, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your gender, regardless of who you are, religious beliefs, whatever, we all are empowered leaders, okay? As long as you wake up to see another day, okay? So, what can we do today? We're going to have this conversation with James Masters, okay? So, I am the publisher of the Empowered Leader, okay? And I help marginalized leaders to speak out, okay? And be unapologetic about it, okay? That's where we are today. So, James, he's the publisher of Inspired to Be, okay? He is an artist, a spiritual educator, and a community leader whose work explores the intersection of creativity, healing, and belonging. Wow, that's an amazing thing for me, okay? And a lot of other people out here as well. So he holds a permanent residency with a local gallery and regularly exhibits throughout the Kansas City area, okay? Within the Unity movement, James is credentialed polyvagal,
Polyvagal.
vagal, okay, thank you, informed and trauma-aware leader, okay? And he serves as a program coordinator for FOLX.
Folks with Faith.
I love that, okay? An LGBTQ-centered organization within the New Thought tradition that creates affirming spaces and supports spiritual communities and deepening their understanding of gender and inclusion, okay? He's also the technologist specialist of Unity Arts Ministry, where he helps expand access to arts as a pathway for personal and spiritual growth that serves on the board of the Faith and Trauma Center, an organization dedicated to study of religious trauma and the education of ministers and lay leaders. Through his artistic and spiritual work, James is committed to fostering connection, compassion, and collective care. Thank you for joining us today, James. When you and I first came acquainted with each other in notes, and I saw your post, and they were very, very thought-provoking. And I said, wow, he's amazing. And that's why I decided to reach out to you to see how we could collaborate. And indeed, we have a lot in common because I grew up the daughter of a Baptist minister.
Mm-hmm.
So would you like to start the conversation about the creativity?
Yeah.
Healing?
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually started this conversation talking a little bit about co-regulation and creating a space for co-regulation. Co-regulation is just when one nervous system recognizes the regulation of another nervous system. And there's a doctor, Dr. Stephen Porges, that talks about how before we can self-regulate, there's a lot of focus on self-regulation in healing spaces. Like, we got to do this, we got to do this. But Stephen Porges is very clear in his research that before we can self-regulate, we have to co-regulate. We need to create the types of spaces and communities where we can regulate together, where we can, create the context for that. And I think that's really, really important when we're talking about this topic of healing. And, the word healing itself to me has always been really fascinating, because the word healing and holy, and I'm not going to get real religious, but the word healing, holy, and whole or complete, they all have the same root word. And so when we talk about healing, we're actually talking about the innate holiness or wholeness within the individual human being. And so what we're going to talk about a little bit today and have a little conversation about is how creativity is a part of that process of actualizing our own holiness and healing. So,
Okay. Okay. Now talk to us about what, excuse me, what this community looks like that you're referring to.
just well, a community itself. So like, I'm a part of multiple communities, and I think that it's really important, to recognize that in those spaces we create a sense of connection. We create a sense of, there's so much in the world that's this barragement of things like social media that cause us to dysregulate. Where we have this onslaught on our nervous systems. But we're actually designed for co-regulation. We're designed for community development. We're designed for expressing our wholeness within communities and within diverse communities. And so, I mean, like, my work with folks with faith, that's a lot of what that's about. My work with Unity Arts Ministries too, that focuses more on creativity. And actually, if it's okay, I want to tell a little bit of my own story on creativity,
Yes,
because yeah,
please.
yeah. So for many years, I'd never really considered myself a creative person. And, like you had mentioned, I'm a permanent resident at an art gallery. And then I'm also, doing exhibitions throughout Kansas City. I did not start there, and that was never my intention. Where I started was, my husband and I moved to the Kansas City area, and we had a really difficult time finding we had a stable place to live, but the place that we moved into had corporate landlords, and it just was not a really great place to live. And I have been a teacher of prayer and meditation forever, right? And I'm like, I advocate for those things, whether it's you take it from a religious standpoint or you take it from a secular standpoint where you're focusing on mindfulness. Those things are very helpful in allowing us to center ourselves and to be present in the moment. The problem that I experienced about a year ago is that I reached a point where those things didn't work. They were not stabilizing me. And I also was moving into a new city where I didn't have a lot of community. I mean, I had some ready-made communities within the Unity movement, but I didn't really have a place for myself to land. And what I found was the only thing that allowed me to experience that calming nervous system, experiencing regulation within my nervous system, was painting. I would start painting, and that's was really a catalyst. And I want to be really clear, for me, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're painting pictures or you're making your bed creatively. I don't think it matters what you're doing creatively. What I think is really important is that flow state, that state where we allow our our genius to come through. And like I said, my intention was just to experience regulation of my nervous system. It was never to, try to have this, massive presence of my art somewhere. That just seemed to happen after I started allowing myself to express creatively. And once I did that too, that's when I began to see this unfoldment of what we call this wholeness or holiness. Things started falling into place, not only with the apartment situation, but my husband and I are now in the process of buying a townhouse. I mean, just things started falling into place as I was allowing myself to express creatively. And so I think that, and again, creativity, whatever it manifests for you, like, I don't care, again, Go wash the windows creatively, do something creatively, find that flow state that allows you to experience a regulated nervous system.
I love that. I love that. And for me, what makes my creativity come alive is music and poetry, the written word in general, because it's just so many ways in which we can use it to achieve our overall goal. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think people kind of sometimes in our grind culture, we have this culture of, creating a brand, and like there's this idea where we have to become something. The name of my channel here on Substack is very intentional, inspired to be. Because we focus so much of our attention on trying to become something. We're trying to get to the next stage in our career. And I'm not saying those are bad. Those aren't bad things. But it is almost like we're putting the cart before the horse, and we're trying to become something rather than just being who we really are. And what's interesting about my art journey itself is when I was a kid, I loved to paint. I actually went to art school. I went to 1 year of art school, and I got hit by a car during that period of time and was pretty badly injured, but I interpreted that through we share this religious trauma history. I interpreted that through the religious paradigms that I grew up with. And I thought, "Oh, God's punishing me. God's punishing me for being, a gay person or being queer or whatever." And I interpreted that, and I went into conversion therapy, which is a program that tries to change gender identity and sexuality. And I did 5 years in 3 different programs. And one of the first things they said was, quit art school. And I did, because I really believed. And so when I started painting, one of the things that I had to work through was the complex grief. So there's complex trauma, complex post-traumatic trauma that people experience through things like religious trauma. But then there's also complex grief, which is all of those 20 years that I did not paint. Those 2 decades, I had to work through the grief as I was reclaiming that part of myself. And here's the thing, I believe everyone is here to be creative. I mean, you can even look at religious traditions. We're made in the image of God. What is God? Creative. Like, we're made to be creative. And so I think recognizing who we are and then expressing that. So I'm not inspired to become, I'm inspired to be, and then I just do my best to show up authentically.
At that place, we are whole, and we can deliver a much more valuable and impactful message to the world.
Yeah.
Okay? So the thing of it is that the same thing happened to me as well. Religion stifles creativity because it keeps you in this box. Okay? It prevents anything from getting out, and nothing can come in. And that's a lonely life to live, where you sacrifice everything, your wants, your desires, and you do something according to somebody else's wishes while you're dying inside. What type of life is that for us to live? I'm not going to live that type of life anymore. Okay? It's over. Because now I'm seeing that my creativity is through the roof, where it didn't exist. And this is why. Set yourself free to be who you are. You deserve that.
Yeah.
While we're still here on earth.
Yep. And I would say religion does that. I would say just culturally, there's all of these boxes that we're supposed to check. This is who we are, and we have to have the right career, or we have to get the right job or house or car or spouse. And then finally we get to be happy, right? That's the goal, is to get all of these checklists, and then we're finally happy. And the problem with that is joy is intrinsic. Every person who's watching this is already whole. Joy is something that lives inside of them, right? It's not something that they can achieve through hitting the checklist. And you're right. Religion is something that I think has both divided us as a society. It's caused us to be separate from each other, but
Yes.
it also tries to help. It tries to force us to conform to something that we really aren't. And what I believe the goal of this human experience, at least for me, is to recognize, wait, what did I come here to be? And how can I express that? And I also do believe that part of that is service, not um service to an end game, but service to the people that are in my life, the community that's in my life. We give so much of our service to the checklists. We give services to the businesses and to the church and to all of this, but you go back to the ancient religion. It's love your neighbor as yourself. That's like the law, right? And most people don't even know who their neighbors are. And so I think that that's important too, and that is our wholeness. And like I said, going back to wholeness and holy and healing, they all have the same root word. Healing to me is just the process of actualizing who we really are as whole beings.
Okay, all right. So you want to talk more about that? You got your three words there, your the pillars, and you talk about the differences between the three, but we have to have all three, right?
But yeah, I mean, so holiness, that's sort of a religious word, right? Somebody is holy, but it's our innate human dignity that we are expressions of this universe, right? That is holiness. Holiness and recognizing, wait, what did I come here to express, right? For you, it's poetry, it's writing, it's music. That's your expression. Clearly, I came in from a young age. I remember, like you couldn't get me to stop painting and drawing. Like you put me in the dirt and I'd be drawing a picture in the dirt. Clearly, I came here to do that, right? And I spent 2 decades just kind of ignoring that and saying, oh, that's not a thing. Once I stepped into that reality and that truth for myself, that's where things in my life started flowing in ways that I really couldn't imagine. It's the synchronicity of that Carl Jung talked about. And I do think that that comes through two things. I think it comes through recognizing where our nervous system is and finding the methods to calm that down and expressing who we really are. Because who we really are, I really believe that all human beings on this planet are meant for connection, are meant for love, are meant for community, right? That's what we're designed for. But we have all of these systems in place that are separating us out and forcing us to become something rather than just be who we really are.
Yeah, which we know these things: belongingness, love, community are part of the belongingness as part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a lot of places where leaders like ourselves may be missing the that's the bridge right there to get us over the line so we can achieve greater goals. Okay. But how do we get these things? First, by loving ourselves, respecting ourselves, and taking care of our basic needs. Okay. And then the things that we want in life will come later.
Yeah.
A lot of people, including myself, have put, wants before needs. Okay. But looking at the big picture, what's going to bring you the most value in the end? Wants are just temporary. They don't last, okay? The same thing, oh, I want that new car. Once you get that new car, then what? You got to pay it. You got to pay for it. How you going to pay for it? Okay? So be careful what you ask for, okay? And all these things align with your values, who you are and what you want in life. If you want that new car, then sometimes you're going to have to give up something to get it, okay?
There's a poem that you just reminded me of, and I really want to read one of the lines. The poem is called "Cast All Your Votes for Dancing." It's by Rumi. I have to look it up because I don't have it memorized. But there's a line in it
No,
that is
go ahead.
so related to what you were saying. And so Rumi says, learn to recognize the counterfeit coins that may buy you just a moment of pleasure, but then drag you for days like a broken man behind a farting camel.
Been there, done that.
Yo, for sure. But that's what you're talking about is like, well, if I just get these things, if I just, get the right car, the right job, the right house, the right spouse, if I just get all these things, I'll finally be happy. And really what that poem is all about, he says, now sweet one, be wise, cast all your votes for dancing. And that's the creative expression. There's a myriad of ways to express ourselves creatively. And for me, obviously it was painting, it was writing, it was, we all have our own things, but it's really about being in the moment, because dancing is an art form that takes place in the moment, right?
I love dancing. That should be on the list too, because I like to watch people do the tango, these different dances and the moves and everything. And it just puts you in a different frame of mind. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, we have to add dancing in that list too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There was another thing that you said about loving ourselves. And I actually, so I was introduced to the New Thought movement. So we mentioned unity, and I'm in the unity movement, but I was actually introduced to this New Thought movement through a woman named Louise Hay. And she really only taught one thing, and that was learn to love yourself, right? And to me, that has been one of the most transformative things. And when she was talking about loving yourself, she wasn't talking about vanity. We think of loving ourselves as vanity, but vanity really is a form of fear. And if we really love ourselves, we wouldn't scare ourselves. We wouldn't be engaging in fear, right? Because that's not very loving. You wouldn't, you love a little child, you don't want to scare them. And when we love ourselves, we wouldn't want to scare ourselves. We wouldn't want to, and I think that was one of the biggest aha moments for me, is that if I truly love myself, I wouldn't be going around scaring myself. And I think that recognizing that too is a part of this process of healing that we're talking about. It's a method to awaken creativity, and then in expressing ourselves creatively. And the commandment that we talked about, the biblical commandment or whatever, that is love your neighbor as yourself. And so many people too forget that as yourself part. And what I think, I've thought a lot about that commandment. I don't really think it's a commandment. I think it's, we will love our neighbor as ourselves. We treat other people with the same levels of judgment and criticism that we give to ourselves, is usually what happens. And I think the real problem, you were talking about religion. I think the real problem of religion isn't that they don't see that commandment. It's that they don't teach love yourself. And they really are treating others as they're treating themselves. Fear of hell, fear of judgment, need for salvation, all of those things really are traumatic to the nervous system and to the mind and to the experience of spirituality. So,
I couldn't agree more. Okay. Because if we don't love ourselves, we can't love anyone else.
yeah.
And then we are dealing with low vibration versus high vibration. And it took me so long to figure this out, because I didn't love myself, because nobody else showed me any love. So I didn't even know what love is. When you say, I love you, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So they could mean different things, And usually when a certain person say they love you, it comes with conditions. Okay, you say you love me. So what is it that you want from me? Okay? Nobody do something for nothing. They all have their hands out and looking for something from you. So that's why I'm always so weary. People will say, well, why you don't trust? When I trust, then I get betrayed. So
I really think too, I think that the nervous system will tell us when we're really learning how to manage what's happening in our own nervous systems. The nervous system lets us know the gut feelings that we have when it comes to interpersonal relationships and learning how to say, you know what, that doesn't feel right to me. I'm not doing that because that doesn't feel right to me. We can't really do that. At the very beginning of this conversation, we started talking about the nervous system and learning not to regulate the nervous system from bad to good. Like all parts of our nervous system are good, right? Fight and flight is good when we are in immediate danger. We're just not meant to live in fight or flight. And when we're, some of my very close friends who I love dearly are in this constant fight and flight stage because they live their lives like this. And just in taking in all of this traumatic information. And I'm not saying don't watch the news, right? I think it's good to be informed. I personally have a couple of really good sources of news, and that's where I get my information from. I have one that is very good, that is local, and then I have a few that are national and international that I allow myself to get news from. But I'm really careful in what I'm consuming because I think that it's important to protect our nervous systems. Otherwise, our nervous system can't give us the feedback that we need on, number one, how are we supposed to be expressing in the world? How are we supposed to be being rather than becoming, right? And number two, we don't get the feedback when we need it if somebody is trying to harm us in some way, and that creates more danger. So
that's why this year I said that I'm going to pay attention to my intuition and what my body is telling me, whether it's right or not. I'd rather be safe and wrong than screwed up. Okay. So I just take my chances. Okay. I'm listening from what I'm feeling. Okay. Because your body not going to tell you wrong. And by the time your mind figures it out, it's too late. You've been had. Okay. I'm just keeping it real. And so we're talking about spirituality. We have to utilize this mind, body, and spirit to keep us whole, to remain high vibration. Then we can these type of things we can repel it easily. Okay, it won't phase us. Okay, and we can keep our minds on our path.
Well, or if it does phase us, we have a recovery plan. Because here's the thing, I think of Renee Good in what happened to her, or just everything that is going on right now in the world, right? Those things, if those things are not phasing somebody, I am more concerned about it not phasing someone than I would be about it phasing someone and them experiencing it, but then finding a way to move back into a personal sense of safety. That is more important than I just am going to ignore what's happening in the world, because ignorance, if the metaphysics are true, right? Whatever we put out comes back. You call it karma or reciprocity or sowing and reaping, whatever. If whatever we put out comes back to us multiplied and we choose to ignore everything, the only thing we are creating is more ignorance in the world. And that is really what has created the systems. All of this stuff that's coming out, with the Epstein file, all this stuff, that stuff has existed for a while. White supremacy existed for as long. The problem wasn't that it wasn't there. The problem was that people chose to ignore it, right?
Right. I agree with you, but being a highly sensitive person, if I continue to take everything in, it's going to continue where I can't sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can't function properly. So I have to pick and choose.
Oh, sure. That's why I said I have just a few sources of news. I do think it's important to be informed. There's a really good teacher within the Unity movement named Eric Butterworth, and he said it this way: if you cannot watch the news without falling apart, don't watch the news for a period of time. Learn to center yourself and then go back to the news so that we can. So I believe we are meant to be the change on this planet, right? But if we don't know what's happening, if we're just choosing to ignore what's happening, we can't promote change. We can't promote growth. We can't be peace and love and joy if we're just ignoring it. And I think it's both. So what I believe is learning to, number one, learning to regulate ourselves, learning to find that, and we do that in community. We do that by creating spaces where we can co-regulate. I mentioned Stephen Porges, who Dr. Stephen Porges said, we cannot self-regulate until we can co-regulate. So that community aspect, even if it's just what we're doing right now and, resonating with each other right now, that part is important, right? But the things that are happening in our world, if they're not causing a disturbance, there's a problem there too, right?
I agree with you, what you're saying, okay? Because I'm the type of person, uh, my circle is small for a reason. Because the people closest to you are the ones can stab you in the back because they know where all the bodies are buried. They know your personal stuff, and they can use it against you. It's happened to me time and time again, even recently. So what I'm trying to say is we have to utilize discernment
Oh yeah. Yep.
even more so now than ever before.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree. Using discernment in everything that we're taking in, and using discernment in how we are responding to it. Like I said, we decided to talk about creativity as a method for actualizing our wholeness. We'll use that in place of the word healing, right? Actualizing our wholeness. Creativity comes through our ability to regulate, but creativity is also a method of resistance to, evil. There is a bit of a difference. So the New Thought traditions don't look at evil in the same way that in a binary way. So within New Thought, there's only one power in the world. That evil has no power in itself. There's only one power, and that is good or God. And good and God are used synonymously, right? So this one presence and one power is good. Evil itself is more like a parasite. And it comes through fear. If we're walking around in fear, that is a way that evil manifests. And it also comes about through greed, which is a manifestation of fear as well, that there's not enough for others. And so I think that it is important to recognize that I'm not one to say that, well, evil doesn't exist. I don't believe that evil is powerful, in that I believe that there's only one presence and one power. You call it God or the universe or whatever. Love. And that it's through aligning ourselves with that presence and power, whatever somebody wants to call it. That's how we dissolve evil, right?
Yes, we need to stay informed, okay? Because there's other ways too. You have lust, you have gluttony, you have pride, you know? And so you're aware of all these ways in which evil can come in, okay? That we allow it in, okay? By even being unaware,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So the more aware we are, the more that we can have wisdom and strength to overcome the evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I
Okay.
really think that the sources of that are really just a belief in something other than God. And I know God can be a really triggering word, but we could also replace that with love.
Or higher power.
Yeah,
Higher power.
power. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So,
Because we know there's some people out there that don't believe in that. And that's up to them.
mm-hmm,
I'm not telling people what to believe. I'm telling them what I believe. Okay. And the people that follow me, if they feel the same way, hey, here we are together.
mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what I believe. And obviously that's what you believe too. That's why we're here together, and we've
Yeah,
been, like-minded people stick together.
yeah.
Duh. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So again, going back to the nervous system part too, it's like I do think that we don't want to just ignore, but create spaces, whether it's community or I actually have multiple prayer partners, and that is a space for me to find that co-regulation where I can have people agree with what I believe is true. I think that that's one of the healthier parts of spiritual community, is to create a context for that to take place. And I advocate for that too. Like the prayer and meditation to me are methods. They are not the only methods, but they are methods for nervous system regulation. And I really too, I think that without the prayer and meditation, I don't know if that creative expression would have ever been rebirthed. It took 20 20 years of working through 20 years of working through religious trauma to eventually get to the space where I was able to just channel that again. So,
Yes, and for me, I ran from that and who I was, where I grew up, to get out of this dysfunctional
mhm,
uh upbringing, to come back to it, because we can run, but we can't hide from ourselves.
yeah.
I cannot heal until I address all of this trauma and go through it, then feel it all.
Hmm.
And I come out better on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know that it's only through my faith in God that I'm here today.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think too, there's a trying to think of the best way to frame this. In New Thought metaphysics, there's an idea called chemicalization as well. Chemicalization is when we introduce the truth, when we introduce that faith that you're talking about into our consciousness, that things kind of get riled up on the inside, right? And I think that we're culturally going through that. You know, when I work in queer spaces, I work in LGBTQ plus spaces, right?
Okay.
What I've witnessed over the past 20 years is that there's been a new development when it comes to how people look at LGBTQ plus people. That most people, the majority of people in America are very supportive and loving, and there's just a few that aren't, right? Well, you take that and then you take the people, you take that old mindset that is still present, kind of like racism and white supremacy, that old mindset that's under the surface, right? But I think the new paradigm, the new idea has already been introduced societally. And I think that from the cultural standpoint, most people want to live in an equitable society. Most people, the majority. And what we're seeing is the reality, that upheaval, that chemicalization process, that it's kind of like if you were to take an acid and a base, like vinegar and baking soda, and you mix those together, it has to neutralize. What I think is actually taking place societally is a neutralization. All these things already existed under the surface. What we're seeing is that it fighting back that neutralization process. And I mean, I might just be choosing to believe that, I don't know, but it seems right, and it seems consistent with what a lot of spiritual teachers and metaphysicians have said for hundreds of years. So,
I think change was necessary.
yeah.
Okay. I don't, a lot of us don't like it. And that's forcing us out of our comfort zone to
Mm,
get the hell up and make some changes. So, because all these things, if they have their way, we're going to be back in the 1929s. Okay. And I'm going to probably be in some cotton field, you know, picking cotton. And I'm not going to do that. I didn't serve 39 years with the army to now have to go and work in a cotton field or being shipped back to Africa. Okay, my ancestors came from there, but I didn't. Okay, so if you see who they're persecuting today, what's going to prevent them from coming after me tomorrow?
yeah.
We need to be out there helping those people now so we don't become victim tomorrow.
Hmm. And
Or
I
our
don't sound,
children. Or our children.
yeah. I can't attest to what is happening in the whole of the United States. I can only attest to what is happening where I'm at and what I actually see happening. So I'm very involved in my local community. And what I see happening is this influx of people who care about marginalized people, who care about the immigrant community, who care. And there's a mobilization taking place. And like I said, I don't know if this is happening everywhere, but I know for certain it is happening here. My husband and I went to a few trainings to teach us how to create safety within our local community. There were 400 people at this training, right? So, and I was like, I sat there a few times. I'll just preface this with I'm a very emotional person and I leak pretty regularly. But two times I cried, and not because I was sad or angry, but because I looked around and I said, oh, this community is not going to let this happen. And I'll tell you, so I was talking to a gentleman that I've known for almost 20 years. He's an elderly gay man, and he saw what was happening and he cried and he said, "Oh my God, they're going to protect us this time." And that's what I'm seeing happen, right? See, this is a man who lived through the AIDS crisis, and he had all of the trauma of that experience stored in his nervous system, and I could see the shift in his experience as he was recognizing people are standing up and saying, "Oh, this is not happening on my watch." And that's the thing. Personal responsibility, and I think it's dual. It's personal responsibility and recognizing what is mine to do. How am I meant to show up creatively in this moment? That is necessary. And I'll tell you, I see it happening in my local community, and I just assume it must be happening everywhere. I mean, I did see that Kansas City itself has been in national news lately for a lot of what's taking place here in terms of people standing up. Especially they were trying to build we'll just call it a concentration camp. They were trying to build and the city, like, people rose up and said, "Oh, absolutely not here. This is not happening here." And so far, Kansas City has been successful in saying absolutely not. So,
Good, because if you see concentration camps, we're gonna start seeing more ropes around the trees. Okay. And then who's next after that?
well,
No, no.
and that's the thing. What I'm saying is people are saying absolutely not on my watch. Not
Absolutely.
on my watch.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. You're not gonna see me out there, but I'm gonna be your biggest cheerleader, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna give you the tools. Okay. I done served 39 years. I don't think I need to go out there and put myself at risk. Okay,
Well, I
because
mean,
I've already done that. I'm
You're
just
but
saying.
you're already, you're creating a context for conversation. Like, this is what's yours to do, right? And that's the whole
Yes.
thing with creativity as a path to actually actualizing our wholeness, creativity as a path to healing. That itself is finding what is ours to do. And not, again, we're getting away from the whole checklist of this is what I'm supposed to do. That's nonsense. We begin to tap in, we go within, whether that's through a daily prayer practice, mindfulness practice. I love all the new apps that are coming out, meditation apps. I personally use Insight Timer. I think it's brilliant, right? But whatever,
Love it.
I
I love
I highly recommend that people take time each day to go inside, to calm themselves down, to relax their body, relax your jaw, relax your shoulders, relax your gut, and move your attention from your head to your physical body. And that's how you figure out, what am I to do in this moment of history? And like I said, for me, it was painting, right? It could be something else for other people, but that's really the methodology behind what I believe is helpful for most people in experiencing their wholeness.
And a lot of times we know, including me, we won't take any action until it's necessary, until
Mhm.
there's absolutely no other choice. Okay. And then you're making a decision from a position of weakness rather than strength. Why not come from a position of strength? Then you'll have much better results.
Yeah.
Right. So, a lot of these things we've learned over time. Okay. I'm 63 years old. If I had the knowledge and skills and everything, now, I mean, earlier when I was a kid, you couldn't have touched me with a 10-foot pole. Okay. So we learn these things through trial and error. We have to give ourselves grace,
Hmm.
and all of these bad things that happen to us are for a reason, to prepare us for the next battle ahead. Okay. So this coming,
Yeah.
trust and believe. If we live, we're gonna see it. We're gonna feel it and experience it. So get yourself ready. Let's go. Right?
Yeah. And anyway, I've appreciated this conversation. Moving back to the creative part of it and the nervous system. I don't. How are you? Have you done any research or looking into how the nervous system works?
I have, and that's why I have limited access,
Yeah.
because I am now at peace and I am happy.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't need people entering with no negativity because there's enough negativity in the world, and I have enough negative thoughts, which
Yeah.
I try to combat myself with thinking positive. I don't need anybody dumping their negativity on me.
Oh, sure, sure,
I
sure.
didn't I didn't recognize that at the beginning.
Mhm.
That's where it's coming from. When you realize where the negativity is coming from, you cut it off.
Yeah.
That's why I don't watch news. I didn't even watch the Super Bowl. I come to Substack and see the news that I trust because people can lead you to the river. Okay, if you allow them.
Yeah.
Who is this person, and why are you giving me this information?
Well, and I do believe that what you call intuition, that there is definitely, when we let ourselves get into those calm states, when we allow our bodies will let us know what is going on. Like, it's just we have to give ourselves space. And creativity, I'm trying to think of ways, like, we mentioned writing, we mentioned painting is where I found it, writing is where a lot of people find it, poetry, music,
Singing?
gardening,
Yeah.
singing, dancing. All of those methods are also ways to get ourselves from this overthinking into our body. But I actually wanted to mention that helps us regulate our nervous system. So much of the way that we engage with the world is we wait until we have to fight, right? Or we wait until we have to flee. And I believe that creativity itself is the solution to the change that we're looking for on the planet. Like, that's how we're going to solve the problems. We can't solve the problems through this constant fight and flight idea. And that's why I am a huge advocate. I highly recommend people go out there, look up polyvagal theory and some of the practices associated with polyvagal theory, and in learning how to experience regulation in their nervous system, because I really believe I think that that's going to be the source of the changes that we want to see on the planet, is when we begin to learn more about how our own bodies work, how our own minds work. That's where we're going to experience the level of creativity that will not just be reactionary to what is happening, but actually have solutions for the problems, right?
That's why we're here to talk
Yep.
about solutions, but we have to also talk about the problems along with that. That's part of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's kind of like the 12-step program. The first step is recognizing, that there is a problem, right? There is that I am not in control and there is a problem. The second step is recognizing that there is a power greater than myself that does have the solution. And I think that that's where we're at, is we need to, like, acknowledge, hey, this stuff's been going on for a really long time. Transphobia, racism, homophobia, xenophobia, all this stuff's been happening for a really long time. That's the problem. Now, where's the solution? And in the 12 steps, I'm a 12 stepper. In the 12 steps, it's prayer and meditation, you know,
Yeah.
and acknowledging the exact nature of our wrongs. I love what Bill W says, though. He talks about, we only need one decent regret, right? We only need one. I think that that's where some people fall into this trap of, like, guilt and shame and all. It's like, oh, no. What did he say about guilt? He said that guilt was actually inverted pride, right? And so what we need to do is we need to acknowledge, oh, wait, how did I contribute to this system in some way? And how can I make amends to fix it? What is mine to do to fix this? And so that's where we're at. And the answer will always be some sort of creative answer. We cannot, what did Einstein say? That we cannot solve the problems that we have based on the thinking that created them. That's where creativity comes in. We need that creative flow to generate the solution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I am so happy for this conversation today. I was going to see if anybody have any questions, but I try to keep things within the hour.
Yeah, go ahead
I
and
want to.
ask some questions.
I was trying to see if anybody has some questions. Let's see.
Mhm.
Um, I don't see anybody have any questions. Let's see. Florence says, watching Dancing with the Stars with my mom is fun. I love dancing too. Yeah, I love it too. It's a way to change your mood and burn some calories. Said, uh, Somebody said I love Louise Hayes too, Hay House. She passed away. She was
Yeah.
very powerful.
Yeah.
Such a creativity and purpose. Let's see somebody else. Let's see. Florence said she said I've made a conscious choice to unplug the news. Yeah, I don't even watch
Yeah.
TV anymore.
Yeah.
So there it is. Only reason I have cable is so I can get the internet to come to Substack. Okay. Um, let's see. Miss Yu said, been there, had church cult like experience myself as well. Took a long time to get through it. I hear you.
Yeah.
Me
There's a
too.
lot of
Me too.
resources. I'm just on the board. I'm not an employee or anything, but and I don't benefit monetarily, but there are a lot of resources on the I think it's faithandtrauma.org website. That's the Faith and Trauma Center, and there are some resources on there if you've experienced religious trauma.
Yes. Not, yes. Thank you, Susie. She said, thanks for 34 years of service. I want to thank you all for coming. Do you all have any questions? James, I really, really enjoyed it. I told you remind me of Elton John because Elton John, when I was growing up,
It's the glasses.
yeah, I used to love Elton John, okay? Norma Jean and all those other songs, boy, they gave me joy, okay? And James, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this live today. It's been very valuable
Margaret,
and very touching.
it's been a joy on my side, and thank you for the opportunity to connect and to talk about things that are important to both of us. So,
and to everyone else as well, okay?
oh, and you can find, if you are interested, on my Substack, Inspired to Be, you can see my art on there. I've been trying to post more regularly on there with my art. So just wanted to.
Yeah, I'll make sure to put your link in there. And thank you again, James. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Empowered Leader, where we lift marginalized voices and the people who support them. If today's episode fired you up, share it with someone ready to lead with courage and conviction. Follow the show for more power-packed insights. Connect and subscribe to iProfessional Coach on Substack for tools to elevate your leadership journey. Until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and keep using your voice for impact.